candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Abeg Vex podcast.
Hello, welcome everybody. Today's really exciting. I have Andy with me. Andy's an author, all right? And we're going to really hone in on one of his books. And I think this is going to be very important for us to talk about. So Andy is the author of The Young Professional, a real-world survival guide for new college graduate. Andy, welcome. Please, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Love to, and thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be on this podcast with you.
Thank you.
So my name is Andy Semotiuk. I'm a U.S. and Canadian immigration attorney. I work with a firm called Pace Law Firm in Toronto. And I've written a book, The Young Professional, as you've described. And in the book, I address three common issues that young people face as they're entering the workforce that I've noticed from working with thousands of clients in the course of my career as an immigration attorney. And I've worked a lot with young professional people, nurses, doctors, engineers, architects, lawyers, etc., going, for example, from Canada to the United States under the Free Trade Agreement, or from overseas to the United States for H-1B visas or L intercorporate, whatever. And here are the three main concerns that I've noticed with young people in their careers. One is money, the second is time, and the third is balance. Wow. And earlier, now we can talk about those themes in more detail, and I'd love to do that. And just before we came on air, we touched on one of the themes. You mentioned that there's a divide between older generations and the younger people that are entering into careers. And you talked about, the question of discipline and how people approach their work. And I thought that was a very important subject. So I think that's a great place for us to dive in, if that's okay with you.
Oh, I would love it. Please dive in. Absolutely.
All right. So I guess the key question is someone looking at their career and trying to figure out, how do I handle this thing? How do I work in this area? And, the comment that you made that younger people have a different attitude or a different approach, perhaps, than some of the older people, say like my generation and so on. I believe it all boils down to one key issue, and that is what's inside here.
Okay.
What's in the heart? What's in the mind? What's in the heart? I believe in every human being. If you explore deeply enough, there's a burning desire, like an aching pain to express themselves and what they have to offer to the world. I believe we're all, in a sense, all of us, looking for an opportunity for us. How can I make something out of my life? This is often, I think, the question people ask themselves when they hear people like me talking. What can you offer me to make my life different and more meaningful? Right. And I think one of the key things that people are looking for is the meaning to their life. How can I change my life and my life course in a way that adds meaning, not only to me, but to the world around me? How can I make a significant difference through whatever I'm doing, in whatever career I'm pursuing? And one of the biggest challenges I believe people have is to identify their unique ability, what I would describe as their God-given, or, if you believe in the universe, or however you want to phrase that, but I call it their God-given unique ability. And the key puzzle that we have to address is, what is my unique ability? And how can I put it in the service of others? And if you can define that for yourself, and if you can put it into the service of others, I believe you will achieve a successful life and a successful career. And to the degree that you miss the mark on answering that question, or you don't bother to explore your own life and what's inside your heart, what's burning inside you. To that degree, the world suffers. We all suffer because you're not making the kind of contribution you could make in this life. And in that regard, let me just add this one other sort of insight, and that is we're all capable of making extraordinary contributions into this world because we're all different and we all have a unique point of view. I grew up somewhere else than you did. I have different life experiences than you have. I went to different schools. I had different friends. I had a different cultural background. I traveled in different circles. And those experiences, those people influenced my view of the world. And I believe people are in this world to make a difference, to take a stand on issues that they care about, and to pursue matters that they care about as best they can. So that, in a short way, is an answer to the question of, why is it that young people aren't working, say, as hard as older people are? Perhaps the answer is because they haven't found this burning, this aching need or desire inside them to express themselves the way they should.
Right.
And they may be drifting. That may be an answer.
Right.
And forgive me for going on like this.
No. I
teaching.
love it. I love it. No, I absolutely love it.
Let me contribute one more insight in
Sure.
this. You know what it is? It's a burning need inside me to get this out to people, especially young people that I deal with and that we're talking about in this podcast. Some time ago, you'll see over my shoulder up here, there's a plaque up on the wall. It's from Toastmasters International. For many years, I was a Toastmaster. In fact, I was a Toastmaster for 35 years. And I attended weekly club meetings where in the Toastmasters organization, people made presentations, oral presentations, and then we gave them feedback on how we thought the presentations were given,
Right.
How they could improve, stop shifting around on your feet, look at your audience, don't use the like all the time when you're saying something, or you mean, or and stuff like that. Just to improve the way you present yourself.
Right.
And over those 35 years, I reached the point where I became a distinguished Toastmaster, which is in the Toastmasters world an achievement. It's like only 1% of the 330,000 Toastmasters worldwide get to the point where they're a distinguished Toastmaster. And I made it up to it took me 35 years, but I got there. Some others can do it in 6 months or a year or whatever. And there are, distinguished Toastmasters that are distinguished and other distinguished Toastmasters that are less distinguished.
Right.
So it varies. But in the course of being in that organization, I learned about one guy who was a speaker who was given the Golden Gavel Award. This is the top award Toastmasters give to, great speakers. And one year, the award was given to a guy named Bob Richards. And I heard an audio recording of his speech to Toastmasters that year when he got the award. And he talked about motivation. And I'd like to briefly talk about motivation with you because it fits right into what we're talking about. And the way he presented it was, at that time, which was many years ago, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years ago, the economy in the United States was in the dumps. Things were not going so well. And so some journalists went out to talk to top economists and asked, well, what's wrong? What's needed? Why are we in such bad shape here economically? And three top economists all answered this questionnaire saying what's missing is motivation. There's not enough motivation. People are not motivated. And he went on to talk about motivation. And what he said hit me like a sledgehammer. And to this day, I'm so thankful that I heard what he said about it.
Have to take
And I'm
notes. It might hit me too.
so I want to share what he said, about motivation. And he talked about himself as a speaker. And he said, he talked to young people about motivation. And he told a story about how when he was a young kid, he lived in a small town, and they had a baseball team. And on that baseball team, there was one big player, great player, named Lou Boudreau. And Lou Boudreau eventually became a second baseman, I think, for the St. Louis Cardinals, or one of the major league teams. But back then, he was the top player in this semi-professional team that played in this guy's town. And Bob Richards, when he was a kid, was in the bleachers on the far side of the baseball court, or baseball diamond, or whatever, the field, when Boudreau hit a home run. And Richards got the ball. He caught the ball. So after the game, he went to the players' dressing room and waited for Boudreau to come out. And with a bunch of other kids. And as he came out, as Lou Boudreau came out, there was a lineup of kids all seeking his autograph. And Richards was one of the kids. And, eventually this guy Boudreau came up to Richards and he says, "Hi, what's your name?" And Richards said, "What? Bobby Richards." And Lou Boudreau looked at him and he said, "What do you want to be when you grow older?" He said, "A baseball player." And Boudreau said to him, "Bobby, you're going to be a great, great person when you grow up. A great, great person." And then he signed the guy's baseball. And Boudreau said, "You can't imagine how motivational that message was to me. What a big difference it made in my life." And I too had people who encouraged me in my life the same way.
Right.
And I have to admit that they motivated me to become the person that I am. But he then went on to describe exactly what is motivation. And this is the thing that hit me over the head like a sledgehammer. He said, motivation is painting a larger picture or view of the life of a person than the view that person has of him or herself. And the key moment of motivation is when that person seizes that larger picture and takes it on for themselves. And I believe that's one of the things that people like you do in terms of how you interact with the people you're teaching and the people, such as people on this podcast.
Thank you, Andy. That means a lot. That actually hits a nerve for me because you mentioned something earlier. We all travel different paths. You don't know what somebody has been through and where somebody has been to get themselves to wherever they are. And see, I'm arming now. Oh goodness, you're going to correct me.
No, don't worry about that.
Goodness. It is important that you be a person to at least start that painting. Even if you don't complete the whole frame, start that painting, because as humans, there's just something about the extrinsic belief that pushes us along, right? Internally, you could be struggling internally, due to trauma, life experiences, work experiences, whatever it may be, right? Because when life deals the cards, it's not always fair, right? So based on experiences, we are our own worst critics, and sometimes we break ourselves down worse than anybody else can. It's just a matter of being somebody's cheerleader, and you just never know. Just planting that seed, right? Plant that seed and just let it blossom, because if I think somebody thinks I'm worth it, right, I will look to make that person proud, right? There's a thing about that's why when kids do things like, "Mommy, Daddy, I did this," It's like looking for that approval. Like, did you think that was pretty cool? Right? There's something to be said about that external factor. And thank you for sharing that. And please, whoever is listening, be that person for somebody. Be that person for a young person. Be that person for even your coworker. Just because a person is an adult does not mean they don't need somebody to believe in them. Please be that person. Going back to the conversation about motivation and the younger generation. The one conversation that comes up a lot is that the younger generations do not have the commitment and the longevity that the older generation dedicated to their work, right? So we see people at the same establishment for 40, 30, 35 years, that generation is fading very fast, right? And that is often attributed to young people not being committed or motivated enough to commit to a career, right? So, what would you say to a person of an older generation who is critical of the younger generation behind them because they're not committing most of their life to a job or career?
Well, I think the problem is not the young person, it's the older person.
Okay.
You've kind of put your finger on it when you said the motivation is the key thing, for the younger people. If they're not up to, it's not necessarily old and young, it's just people in terms of what do they see for themselves? Why am I here is the question. That's one of the main questions in life, Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? That's a deep question. It's not something you can answer, over a cup of coffee. You have to, and the answer is inside here, inside you.
Right.
You have to explore your past right from birth and going, forward. Like, why are you here? The answer is there if you'll just explore hard enough. Now, an older person looking at someone and say, well, the person's lazy, they're not looking, There may be a disconnect between what they're doing and what their calling is in life. To give you an example, goes back to unique ability, and we could sort of portray this way. If you looked at all your abilities and skills, if we took a moment to define everything that what can you do, what kind of skills do you have? Now you could start with things like make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, speak English, write an essay or whatever it is, and just list all the things that you've accomplished or can accomplish. If we did that, and then let's say we try to categorize each ability or skill into 4 categories: incompetent, competent, excellent, unique ability. I believe if we did an exercise like that, and let's say we used artificial intelligence to really define you and all your skills, and it contacted health records, police records, education, everything about you, what we would end up with is a bell curve, like it would go up and down. And on the one side would be incompetent. So, for example, in my case, if we're looking at my skills and abilities, under incompetent, you would see income taxes. I know I'm incompetent. My accountant knows I'm incompetent. The IRS knows I'm incompetent. And the world knows I'm incompetent. And then we go into the sort of more competent area, like riding a bicycle, driving a car, and then, excellent, maybe, I don't know what, playing football or whatever it might be. And then we look at the unique ability side of my life. And perhaps one of the unique abilities that I have is a great communication skills. I hope I have that at least.
You do.
I feel like just being on this program, to me, it's something very special. I enjoy speaking with people like you and being on programs like this. It's ideal for me. I know it's a unique ability because it's easy for me to do. I enjoy it. I find when I'm involved, you know, an hour seems like 10 minutes to me, you know. In fact, I get, it's kind of a sensation going up and down my arms, is, like because I'm enjoying it so much, or my hair stands on edge. These are signs. People tell me you're good at it, you know. So these are signs. So one of the tasks and we talked about this before, is identifying your unique ability. And you have to work at it. You have to sit down and work on it. And it's tied in again to this: why am I here? What is my calling? Not my career, but my calling. What can I do? Now, I'll give an example of someone who's young, but who's going to be motivated, I promise you, and will be very active. Okay? That's a young person has a baby, like either a woman or even father or mother, young child,
Right.
and now they have to work, feed them, change them, put them to bed, wake them up in the morning, and you're up at 6 in the morning because the kid is up at 6
Right.
at your bedside. You know,
Right.
there's no more time. I got to go to sleep, or I don't have time. No, you got time. You got time. You got to.
That's
Right.
it.
So, but I tell you what it is. Kids may not bring happiness into your life. Hopefully they will. But kids will bring meaning into your life. That's for sure. You'll find your meaning, in most instances with a child.
Absolutely.
So there's that kind of aspect. And looking at people as a flat tire, why isn't that person, like performing? That's, I think, the wrong question. You got to ask, what does this person care about? What makes a difference to them? And you might draw a circle. Let's say take me, I'm a lawyer. Okay. If you look at my life, like if you had a camera in my office right now, or during this day, and you looked at what I did, you might think it's very boring, because what do? I answer the phone. I type on my computer. I answer emails. People come in and ask questions. I talk to them. They go. I write letters and so on. Is that what a lawyer does? Like an immigration lawyer? I answer. I fill in forms all day long. Now, there's a way of looking at this, and there's a kind of a little story that I like to employ with the students that are working with me. I say, it's a matter of attitude. And there's the story about you're walking down the street, you see three people building a brick wall. You go to the first one, you say, what are you doing? Guy says, I'm making $10 an hour. You go to the second, what are you doing? I'm building a wall. You go to the third one, what are you doing? I'm building a cathedral. Three different mindsets about the same work. And I apply this in my office in immigration. I say, three people question the first one, what are you doing? I'm making $10 an hour. Second, what are you doing? I'm filling in forms. Third one, what are you doing? I'm changing people's lives for the better forever. That's the way I like to see my life and my career. But I confess, I can't see it that way every day. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need a cup of coffee. Things are not going so well. That's life.
I mean, it's life, and I think if every day you felt that way, would be boring. You need those reevaluation days. I've had a few this week alone where I'm like, okay, why am I doing this again? Like, when you're advocating and you want something so badly for somebody or a group of students, and it just feels like the self-sabotaging. I'm like, okay, so why do I want this for you? Like, what are we doing here? What is going on here? So you need those days to regroup. I absolutely love when you said your calling is different from your career. People have a hard time either differentiating that, or they do differentiate it, but they feel like it's too far apart. There's no relationship between their career and their passion. Or they feel like, okay, but my career pays the bill. I have a stable life. Chasing a passion is kind of childish or daydreaming, right? And I'm talking about people across generation, because the one thing that I motivate people is that it's never too late. I have students well into their 60s still coming back and reinventing themselves, and those are my best students, right? So what would you say to somebody who feels like, okay, you know what, I have this passion, I'm really good at this, but I don't know, it's not stable, I'd rather just stick with my job, and although I'm not very happy and I really don't know why I'm here, but I'll just stick it out, right?
Okay, well, I get it. I get that. And I'm very familiar with it. So this is the way I would kind of look at that. Look, sometimes, let's say you're an immigrant, you're new to a country, you just arrived in the United States. You can't be like Steven Spielberg making a film right off the bat. You know, maybe you have to start off being a waiter or a waitress, a waiter in a bar or whatever. Right? Now, why? Because you need the resources, the money to pay the rent and feed yourself and so on. There's no indignity in that. The way to look at it is this way. You can love what you do. So, for example, Einstein was a nuclear physicist. He loved physics. And his life was, it's like falling right in the middle of a river going downstream, and the river is physics, and he's in it. Love it, right? But we're not all like that. Like in the beginning, we have to find our way. We have to find which way to go. And you can either love what you do, or if you can't love what you do, you can love the reason why you're doing it. So, for example, you may be a mother with 2 children, and you're on welfare, but you're trying to make a go of it. And maybe you're a waitress, serving in a restaurant. So, is this like motivational territory? Can you be motivated to be, it's hard, but you can love your children, and you can, by earning the money to look after the children, pay for their education and so on, and pay the rent and the food. You're doing what you need to do. And you try to find in your life a little bit of time to devote to what is your passion, what you love. And you hope over time you can build up enough of a circle of time and reward that the passion will take over the survival. That's unfortunately the way life works. The way we think is, look, give me the money and I'll make you a great film. Just give me the money. The problem is the money. No, no, no. The problem is not the money. The problem is the vision and the idea. The money is the last passenger on the bus. The money doesn't come first, and then the plan. The plan comes first. If you don't have the money in your life, it's not the money that's the problem. It's the plan, your view of your life. This thing has to change. If you got this thing going in the right direction, the money will follow. In my own career, I'll share this. Whenever I thought about the money when I'm talking to a client and what I'm going to make from this client, it never went well. It's always, I stumble across, I stumble through or whatever, but it's not satisfying. The client's not happy. I'm not happy. But when I think about the client and what the client wants, and for me to do the best job I can for that client, the money follows. I don't have to worry about the money. It'll come. But the life is good, and what I'm doing is rewarding. And I love I love myself for what I'm doing for someone else. So that's the way I would, sort of deal with the kind of issues you're raising.
Right. And you said a lot of very, very truthful things. And I think some people give up on themselves, counting their dreams and aspiration as childhood foolishness. I'm older now. I have responsibilities. Even if The financial aspect is well taken care of. I see some adults who feel like their time has passed, right? So, take for instance, you're doing this, okay? And you've done all different things in life, including your beautiful plaque on the wall, right? You've given your time to be involved in that. You did not just tunnel vision into law, immigration law. Everything around you was law, law, and law, right? You found time in your career in your life to also be effective in other places, do things that make you happy. You talked about how happy you feel getting on a podcast, okay? Having these kinds of conversation where an hour feels like, oh my goodness, where did the time go, right? You talked about, the sensation that you receive, the hair, the goosebumps, and, just the excitement, the vitality you get from it, right? And there are people that unfortunately have denied themselves of that vitality because, oh, I'm no longer that young, right? So, or, I think my time is past. And I think that is a great disservice because, like you said earlier, you said it so beautifully. You are depriving the world of your gift.
Yeah, yeah.
You're depriving the world of your gifts. You're depriving everybody of the impact that you can make. So we need to hear from you. Get involved. Come out,
Just
talk to
on
us.
the theme of older people and
Right.
how to help older people. I got a PhD in helping older people because I helped my mother until she died and my aunt, her sister, until she died.
Right.
The thing with older people is goal setting.
Uh,
They have to have something to look forward to.
okay.
A life without something to look forward to is a life without meaning.
Okay.
So, and the older you get, you're right. You get into this mentality, oh, well, my life is all finished now. I don't have anything more to look forward to. So you got, if you're in the situation of helping an older person, or if you are an older person yourself and you need to, get yourself up and going, goals are critical to a successful life. I met, in my lifetime, one of the persons I met very briefly was Buzz Aldrin, who was an astronaut, one of the astronauts that was on the moon. I saw him in a hotel in Los Angeles one night. Now, I met him. I mean, I saw him, and I don't know if I don't know if we shook hands, but he looked at me, and I looked at him, and gee, this guy was on the moon. That's quite a thing. Now you may know this, but when they came back from being on the moon, there was this issue about, well, what do you do after you got to the moon? You're on top of the moon, and there's this dive in terms of emotional or sort of what's the purpose of my life now kind of thing. So so NASA started setting goals for them or having them set goals for themselves post arrival from the moon. They needed to do that in order to keep themselves healthy and keep their lives going. So we all need that. We need some reflection on, what are we doing and what's ahead? What do I have to look forward to? Now, one of the big things to look forward to is if you've got a child that's growing up, or if you've got grandchildren or great-grandchildren, those are what I call reasons for living, if you're lucky enough to have those in your life. But even if you don't, you can look at, what are your talents and how can you pass on what you've learned in your life to other people? Don't save it in a safe, lock it up inside you. Come on, man. You got to share what you've learned with young people coming up. Make it easier for them.
Absolutely.
Life is hard. One of the big secrets or lessons, I guess, that I learned in my own life is no matter how right-thinking you are, no matter what your great values are, life is going to throw you a few curves, and you're going to get hit once in a while. Another big lesson in my own life is that I don't think you can live a life of any sort without harming someone along the way. It's just part of the human experience that you hurt other people. It's not that you want to hurt other people. Hopefully, you don't want to, you know. And when you do, hopefully, you won't hurt them badly. You'll do, the minimum damage kind of thing. But, it's like a wake up call to realize, oh, I'm hurting someone. And how you deal with that. These are all value issues that you have to deal with in your life. As an older person who's gone through life, you've lived through all that stuff. Maybe you did hurt a few people. Maybe you made a few mistakes. Hey, mistakes is experience. That's what mistakes are, is experience. So that's something you got to share. And if you think you're old and you got nothing to do, you've locked up everything, all the wealth that you have inside you. And it's, our world is worse because you're not sharing your experiences and your knowledge with other people, especially young people coming through who have, and incidentally, I have an 18-year-old here that's working for me, and I have some others who are in their 20s and 30s and so on. I get along better with that 18-year-old than I get along with the 30 and 40-year-olds because, generations, like, they jump, right? So the older people relate well to, like, grandparents relate very well to grandchildren.
Right.
So then with children, it's
Right.
strange that way, but it's true.
It's true. It is very true. There's always this dynamic of the generation before being so critical of the generation right after it and the generation right after it saying, you just don't understand. Time has changed. There's always that bickering. Talking about hurting somebody, there's a saying that I've heard it recently, like in the last 2 years, that no matter how good a person you are a villain in somebody's book. You are a villain. And so, if you realize that you have been a villain in a way that was very obvious, how important is accountability, especially given that we're talking about intergenerational support and mentoring in a sense? How important do you think that is to, bridge any fracture or have that level of support? Because we talked about motivation. We talked about painting a bigger picture of somebody than the picture that they have of themselves in the future. How do you think that, how important do you think it is to have that acknowledgement? Because apologizing is not something that comes easy when you're thinking of an older person apologizing to a younger person, right? So, what is your opinion on that?
I guess a big thing is pride,
Huh?
the challenge of getting over your own pride and your own ego to reach across to someone who you've harmed, and to have the wisdom to see that, it's necessary to patch up things that you've done wrong. Now, how do you find that wisdom, or how do you get across, to surmount your pride? Strength of character is one aspect. You have to be willing to see, to try to be more objective about your life and your role in life. There may be people listening to this program that I harmed and that I, I didn't do well with. And if there are, I apologize. Forgive me, please, and I wish you all the best.
I love it.
So that's a way of doing it, I guess, if you're older.
Please forgive Andy.
Exactly. You want the world to work well and for people to get along and so on. But let me share something deep with you. That's something I kind of had to learn, and that is, we talked earlier before the program started about our backgrounds. Your background is from Nigeria. My background, my parents and so on, came from Ukraine. And right now there's a war in Ukraine because Russia invaded Ukraine. Well, that's been a hardship, for anybody who's Ukrainian in background. To draw an analogy, you're sitting at home in your house and one day someone breaks down the door and says, I live here now. This is not your house, it's my house. You say, well, wait a minute, this is my house. No, it's my house now. This is the kind of scenario that Ukraine is facing. And I've had to learn that, sadly, that in this world, there are individuals or people who are not peaceful. They're prepared to, to bully you around, and you have to deal with that. And we try to do our best, and thankfully, in this world, there are people who help. And in the case of Ukraine, we've been very grateful about the help, like, for example, the United States have given, and Canada and other countries, Europe. And to bring the matter home, I know you're from Nigeria. Ukraine is a breadbasket of Europe, and food supplies were going down to Africa. And Russia was trying to cut off the food supply for grains going to Africa, to the point where starvation was a concern. Like they were going to actually starve millions of people from getting the grains that they needed to survive in Africa. And luckily, Ukraine was able to knock out the Russian naval force that was blockading the Black Sea to get so they could get their ships out and for the grains to go out. As an example of, the real world that we're dealing in and how you have to face it. But you got to do your best. And I would say the best in a situation like that is support live by your creed, by the values you hold: freedom, sovereignty and independence of states, a rule of law, human rights, things of that nature. And I know those two concepts are important in Nigeria as well. I'm aware of what's going on over there.
Absolutely.
So, especially with those girls that were abducted, for example, right? So anyway, I just thought that might address the kind of things you're talking about.
Right. That was a good marriage of that ideology. Of what I got from that personally was what might be right to you at that time may actually be injurious to somebody else. So it is important to be kind, right? And also your injurious behavior it might be to one particular person at a time, but you don't know how it affects that person as a whole and the people around them. So it can be kind, people. That's it. Just be kind. Apologize when you need to, and acknowledge when you falter, because we're all humans. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. And seek forgiveness if you need to. And, if you feel like you were in the right, more power to you. So, talking about this intergenerational thing, I know we have delved into so many aspects of it. When it comes to younger people who are graduating college and going into the workforce, going into the corporate world, some of them, this might be a brand new experience for them because they've never worked. They've focused on education and they never volunteered or interned, right? Would you suggest that the idea of mentorship, finding somebody maybe in their workspace they respect? So, for example, your 18-year-old in your office, right? Find somebody who's willing to mentor you, teach you, show you the ropes, for lack of a better analogy, right? Would you suggest a young person seek out somebody of authority or somebody with experience in their area of career, or even passion, to mentor them?
Well, I've got some thoughts on that subject. Thank you for raising that. Of course, it's a good idea to try and find a mentor and ask for that mentor to help you develop, yourself in a career path or whatever. But sometimes you're not able to find someone who's willing to mentor you. So what do you do then? And my answer to that is look for role models. And
Andy, that was a joke. You were supposed to laugh.
Sorry. I missed the point there. What was the joke?
Goodness. You said, what do you do when you don't find a mentor? I said, you cry.
Okay, I got you. That's good. Anyway, yeah, so I suggested role models.
Okay.
Now, for women in particular, which is something I'm very interested in, I wrote a book. This is kind of off a little bit, but I'll share it with you. It's a book about Salomia, who was a opera star in the golden age of opera. The book is called Salomia, Star of Opera's Golden Age, which is about my great aunt, as a matter of fact, my
Oh, wow.
grandmother's sister. And she was the world's leading soprano in the first decade of the 1900s, the world's leading soprano. And she rose from obscurity to world fame. And the story about her life is very motivational, as an example of someone who could serve as a model for young people, well, women in particular, young women who are trying to establish themselves in their career, whatever it might be. In her case, it was opera. In another case, in your case, it was nursing. In another case, it might be, I don't know, medicine or doctor or lawyer or whatever it is. But she chose singing and opera. And the story of her life, to the point where she traveled worldwide and sang worldwide, including coming to New York. I don't know if she was in New Jersey, as a matter of fact, but she was in New York, in Philadelphia, in Chicago. She traveled to Montreal. She traveled to Winnipeg in Canada. She was in South America. She performed in Africa. She performed in Europe. And it's a worthy story. It's a long story. I can't share the whole story here.
Next time, Andy, I'll have you on next time to talk about it.
That'd be super. That'd be super. Yeah. So anyway, I certainly believe in mentors. I know you do too. And if you can't find a mentor, find a role model and follow a role model. Meaning, read some books about people that achieved greatness.
Right. I think it gets dicey when we're talking about role models and mentors. People tend to put people on pedestal, and they get very disappointed when the person doesn't or disagrees with them or has a different viewpoint on certain things. Whoever you pick, whether it's a role model or mentor, please understand that this person is human. In addition to their career, they also have their own personal beliefs, right? So it has to be a respectful relationship all around. Whether it's a role model that, like your aunt Solomia, or Frida Kahlo or Oprah Winfrey. Oprah and I may not see eye to eye on everything, but there's just certain levels of her accomplishment that I admire. Okay, Michelle Obama, you name it, right? So I may not like everything she stands for or they stand for, but there's certain aspect of their lives that I admire and aspire to accomplish. So when you're looking up to an older person, okay, now that sounds crazy. When you're looking for an experienced person, they're not always older. Well, if you're looking for somebody that is more experienced, whether it's in a career field or your hobby or your passion, it is important to also understand that this person is a whole being and not easily get swept away in the fantasy of that person, I would say. Do you agree, Andy?
Oh, yeah. There's a reality to every person. They have their ups and downs,
right?
Like we do. And it's not a good idea to worship someone as a saint, because you're going to find out sooner or later there are no saints in this world except for people like Mother Teresa or someone. But generally, by and large, people have their faults. And since nobody's perfect, you have to be willing to accept some imperfections to lead a normal life and not to get carried away.
I love it. Thank you. So, talking about immigration law and students, this is close to my heart as well. So, what would your recommendation be for a young man or woman who, by way of education or career opportunity, migrates from anywhere around the world to Canada or the United States to pursue whatever is going on in their lives? What is the one thing that you would offer as an advice or suggestion about thriving?
Okay. Generally, I'll summarize by saying there are 5 ways to immigrate to the United States or Canada. Okay. And I'm just going to cover the 5 ways generally and talk more about it if we need to.
Yes, please.
So the first way is study your way in.
Okay.
So if you're going to be, you're going into nursing, you get accepted at a college or university, and you become a student. Then after student, you get a work permit to work OPT, optional practical training, after you're completing your studies. And then after that, you can go to a work permit, H-1B, and then ultimately green card, as an example. The second way is you have a family member that sponsors you to come in. So, for example, you marry an American or a Canadian, say. So the person who's a Canadian or American sponsors the person who's a foreigner to come and live in the United States or Canada. The third way is you work your way in. So if you are a skilled professional, for example, engineer, nurse, architect, accountant, or whatever, there are ways that you can come by working in the United States and ultimately getting permission to stay permanently. The fourth way is to claim refugee status, that is to say, asylum. You're from a country where you have the fear that you will be persecuted if you return to your country of origin. And so, for example, a Muslim country that does not recognize gay people, you're gay, that might be an example of someone who might be acknowledged as a person that's worthy of asylum. But basically, the general criteria are race, religion, political opinion, and so on. And then finally, there's invest your way in. If you have sufficient funds, you can invest in a business. You can perhaps buy a business that you would run, or you might invest in a business and thereby get a green card and immigrate to the United States or to Canada. Now, which one you choose depends on your life circumstances. Are you a student? Are you older? Do you have a lot of money? You don't have a lot of money. Are you skilled or not skilled? These are all questions that we have to deal with in order to address the issues that we're talking about. But we talked about, just before the program started, we talked about Nigerians in particular. And I'm aware, like our firm, Pace Law Firm, we do a lot of Nigerians. I'm aware that Houston is a base for Nigerians in particular. And
Right.
it's a good place to go to, like in terms of immigration. But we'd have to talk about what route you're going to take depending on, what your circumstances are. But that's a general comment about immigration.
Okay. So how do you thrive? Because the one conversation I had recently with a family member who they're doing well. They're doing incredibly well. They're very studious. They're doing well in school and everything else that they need to do. They really want to work, volunteer, and things of that nature. So is this something that you would encourage, say, a young adult who came into the country, through education, through the university studying to, improve themselves and be part of the community or contribute to the financial health of the country by, working in corporate? Is something like assimilating in ways of volunteering or interning something good to start building that work ethic, right? Or should the focus be the studies until graduation? Because some people struggle in that manner where they're like, okay, I want to also understand the culture, the work culture. I want to understand what is out there in my chosen career field. But I'm also concerned that I may not get that opportunity or feel like it might not benefit me in any sense. It might be a distraction to school. So what would you suggest?
Okay, well, I guess we're talking about young people in particular.
Yes.
And,
The
what's
education
the road?
realm. Yes.
Right. Well, first of all, you have to, I would say, as someone that is a would-be immigrant, say to the United States or Canada, I would say you need to finish your grade school and your high school back home.
Okay.
I mean, that's a basic. And then you got to look at, how well are you doing in school and can you make the grade in terms of being accepted at a college or university because of your education. Let's say you didn't make it so well through high school. So then you'd have to take some remedial courses or improve yourself in terms of what you have in the way of education to become the kind of individual that has promise in the educational sphere that you're looking at, that has something to contribute to that area of education. But let's say you have something. Let's say your grades are great, or maybe you've got a scholarship that's a possibility. Maybe you're really great at, say, something like football or tennis or some sport, or maybe you're really good at singing or playing an instrument or playing checkers or chess or whatever the colleges have in the way of programs to accept individuals that come in. Whatever that might be, you've got to struggle. You know what this is? It's like this. You're struggling with all these other people, like when you're trying to get off an airplane. I notice people don't sit there and wait for everybody to leave and then they get up. They're all in there like this. And my wife used to say to me, well, wait for them to all leave. And I said, no, no, no. Life is not like that. Life is not wait until everybody goes and then you go. Life is part of this. You have to struggle your way through. Now, you've got to be decent to other people. This is not got to be a bully,
Right.
but you don't just sit there and wait. The guy who became president of General Motors didn't sort of, well, I think I'll wander around and whatever happens, I'll take this job, that job, and let life come to me and I'll take whatever that gives me. No, no, no. To get up to be president of General Motors, you gotta plan and work hard. And who are you working for? You're working for yourself. You're working on yourself to become a better person. Now, if you've not done this so far in your life, it's time to wake up. It's time to start working on yourself, Like for 8 hours a day, you might work at school or you might work at a job. But after the, 8 hours, it's what you do then. With every moment of your life, are you improving? Are you becoming better than everybody else? Now, don't compare yourself to everybody else, but pay attention to your own life. Are you doing the best you can do with what you've got? And if you are, hopefully you'll get a chance. The life is not fair. You have to struggle for every chance you can get. Getting to college is not given. It's not for sure. You're lucky to get into college. Unless you're a genius and it's easy for you. But, my life has been not, hey, you're a genius, come on in. No, my life is, you're too slow, you're too fast, you're too fat, you're too high, you're too, you don't have enough money, you have too much money, you don't have enough education, you got the wrong education. That's my life. I assume for many others that you got the same thing going. It's not like the doors are all open, come on in for you. No, no, no. So my encouragement is work on yourself. Do the best you can. Become the best person you can be. And hopefully the doors will open for you. There's an adage that I've learned in life, and it is, if you'll work hard on yourself, life will go easy on you. But if you don't work hard on yourself, your life is going to be hard, more likely than not. So if you can get that break to be accepted at a college or university, whether it's for academics or it's for sports or for art, whatever it is, take it and go for it. When you see a green light, go for it. Don't wait. There's some people who look at down the street and they say, I'm waiting for all the lights to turn green and then I'll go. No, that's the wrong attitude. If you got a green light right now, the first light is green, take it. By the time you get to the second light, it might be green. Don't sit at the beginning waiting, because it'll never happen that all the lights will be green, or very rarely. And your life will go by and you'll find out, gee, I lost and my whole life has gone down the drain.
It goes fast. That was a great ending. That was a great ending. Work hard so life can be easy on you. And if you don't work hard, life will be hard on you.
Yeah.
And
Work on yourself.
work on yourself. The best thing anybody can invest in is this thing between your ears.
I
Nobody
agree.
can take that from you. It doesn't matter if they like you, love you, or absolutely despise you. Nobody can take this investment away from you. And
100%. 100%.
guard this investment and understand that this one works for you. So this was so great, Andy. I would really like to have us have this conversation again, maybe more, whatever you want to talk about, because I feel like you and I could talk about anything.
Oh, true. I said it was wonderful to be with you here today.
Thank you.
Loved it.
Thank you.
We have, you know what we are? We're soul brothers and sisters.
Oh,
You know,
I
we're,
love it.
we've got a similar, mindset.
We do.
Trying to be as helpful as possible, I think.
Uh, I wish I had certain things, and I know more and more. If I had those needs at some point, there's somebody out there that has that need now. So it might not be useful for everybody, but that one person. I like the starfish story. Have you ever heard it?
Yes, I know it. Well,
I
go
love
ahead.
that
Tell
story.
it. Tell it.
So the one that I know is a man and his son were walking down a shore, a beach, and a man seen at the distance was frantically picking up starfish that washed ashore and just throwing it back into the ocean. And the whole shore was littered with a starfish. And the boy was like, "What is he doing? It's a lot. It's a lot of work." Father's like, "Yeah, you're right, son." And as they approached this man, and he's frantically picking it up, and the man felt so compelled to tell this man, "Sir, I don't know if you know this, but there's a whole lot, and I don't think that would make much of a difference, right?" And he picked up one starfish, flung it back into the ocean, and said it made a difference to that one. So, my students know this story very well. I always end my lecture with, "Did somebody learn one thing?" Because that's all I care about. If you come to my class and you walk away with just one thing, I have done my job.
Yeah.
So I look for my starfish, and yeah,
Let me just share one final story with you.
absolutely.
And this story is, well, a saying, really. You may know this story or saying. It's, you may be one person in the world, but you can be the world to one person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You never know. You never know. And it always takes somebody outside of your immediate circle, right? Your family might doubt you, your siblings, your friends, the church members, your work colleague. It takes a stranger believing in you to propel your life. So I don't know who this will impact. Please, if you're listening, invest in yourself, invest in improving yourself. Generationally, let us support our younger generation. We all have different needs. We've all made an impact very differently in our world today. Yes, they may be the generation of immediate gratification, but the one thing that I absolutely love about the new generation, they don't tolerate a lot of nonsense. I absolutely love
For sure.
that. They don't have to put up with it, right? So if you can mentor, if you can support, you can coach, whatever you can do, please do it. Help us help each other. Let's grow together in love. Love everybody. This was great,
Let
Andy.
me, let me just share. If anybody wants to reach me, they can reach me at pacelawfirm.com.
Absolutely.
And if they want to see any of my books, they're on Amazon. You can just type in my name or the name of the book, and you'll find it on Amazon.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do at the end for the show notes, we are on Spotify and Amazon. So at the show notes, I'm going to include Andy's law firm. I also include his books. So you can find his books on Amazon. You can reach out to him. And if you have any immigration questions, in US and Canada. He has offices in both countries. Please reach out, ask whatever questions, consult with him. He's a great guy. You can see he's very lovable. So reach out to Andy, ask Andy questions, and I don't think this is the last time Andy and I will talk. So Andy, it was great having you here. I'm so happy we got to connect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Abeg Vex podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.